Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Raj Nair, CEO of Indecomm Global Services, to talk about Gen AI and the exciting ways Indecomm is helping lenders deploy it, as well as the guardrails they're making sure to implement. Raj, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me here. Excited. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So I have to say something about Indecomm really fast. I've been on the committee that looks at our Tech 100 and picks those award winners every year for since we started it. Actually, I think I was here when they started it. You guys have been on that so many times. I think this is your fifth year in a row, fourth year in a row, something like that. But year after year, so just shout out to that. That's a really incredible thing to get on that list year after year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I mean, it's always an honor to be on that list. But I think 5 years, I think, and that's probably in a row. But that actually doesn't tell the whole story. It's over 20 years. I mean, we're in business for 23 years, but like 18 years ago is really when we started our tech journey. So it took us a while to get maturity, and that's part of our story. It's just we don't rush things, we get it done right. So I guess it took us 13 years to make that list.
Well, it's impressive. Let's dig into the tech part a little bit. So, AI, especially generative AI, right now, of course, it's the big buzzword, has been for the last 2 years. In the mortgage industry, especially, really seeing a lot of people want to make the best use of this. What are some of the most common misconceptions you're seeing from lenders or executives when it comes to Gen AI?
Oh well, I mean, first of all, I think just trying and understanding the real potential of Gen AI, that is usually the first challenge. Executives are bombarded with this just so much noise, right? I mean, you switch on, I mean, you can't escape that, right? And then plus also their own lived experience. So many of them have made this foray into ChatGPT. We all use ChatGPT for something or the other, right? So we have, so we've tried giving it instructions, it produces results, it looks great, and it is great. I mean, so I'm not here to, I mean, I think the key thing is to understand that Gen AI and that whole technology framework is for real. I mean, it is evolving so rapidly. That is another challenge, is that how do you keep up, right? I mean, how do you make sure that your investments that you make don't get obsolete even before you start adopting them because there's something new comes in. So that is kind of one of the things that, and that's probably at an adoption level, right? But from misconceptions perspective, it's this thing that Gen AI can handle the complexity of the mortgage process, the mortgage documents, mortgage data, because ultimately it comes down to the data that's resident in different systems or in the documents to be able to bring all of that together and then provide the outputs that are needed to drive the mortgage process. And we work a lot on that middle office, on the production of the mortgage widget, essentially, right? So and we know from the MBA numbers, it's $13,000 to produce a mortgage. About $7,000 of it is to just produce the widget. So in there, I think everyone's looking at how can we get that done faster, better? How can we make that experience for the customer better? I think that's what drives the automation journey. So now Gen AI comes into the mix, right? And then the answers, like in the impression that that's given out is, oh, we can just push documents through it. It'll just produce the whole mortgage. We don't need humans in the loop. We just, we can, it just comes down. And there are some really fantastical exaggerations that are made along those lines. And I think that's really where we have to, we have to tackle that especially with an executive level, that what you try with say you upload your own utility bill and you write prompts against it and the outputs that you get, it's very different from taking an entire mortgage package, a 1003, an appraisal, a credit report, an AUS. I mean, all these are all the real documents that drive the mortgage decision, and then have the LLM spit out a decision. That is not how it works. I mean, and then also have to take into account what happens when, what kind of guardrails do you put around it? Because we know, I mean, just the nature of the technology. I mean, and I think just an understanding of what an LLM is and how does it work, right? Putting it into a little bit of a layman terms without getting into neural networks and all of those things and RAG and all those things. Just being able to explain that is really the key. Is that ultimately it is guessing the next word. I mean,
Right.
all said and done, that's what it's doing, but how you prompt it is really what drives this output, but you still have to put guardrails around it. So I would say it's this exaggerated view of its potential, um, a lack of understanding of how to put guardrails around it, and the third is how do you keep up with your investments, right? Once you adopt it, how do you keep up with it? So uh, things are changing. I mean, we hear this all the time. So how do you keep up? I think those are the three areas that I think executives kind of, many of them, some of them are, I mean, they get it, but we run into who still need a little bit of that guidance and handholding. And unfortunately, there are vendors in our space who kind of take advantage of that lack of experience and kind of oversell. So that's really where, at least from my perspective, that's what I see.
No, I agree 100%. When I started at HousingWire in 2013, just it's been an ongoing theme from my perspective that you have a number of tech companies come into the space and be like, oh, we can fix all this. Oh, you guys have a problem, let us fix that. But they don't understand the mortgage side. They're just coming at it from the tech side. It's one of the reasons I brought up the fact that you guys have won this award for us because you're applying the technology, but you're coming at it from that knowledge base of like, you understand how complicated the mortgage process is. And I feel like that's step one.
Correct, correct. I mean, so you bring up such an important point. Oftentimes, people don't want to hear; they want the simple soundbite, right? And the simple sound bites are possible. I mean, the people who really don't know the detail, I mean, ignorance is bliss. So sometimes you can just say it, oh yeah, it can get done, right? And I wish it was the case, right? There is a happy path in the mortgage process, but that path applies only to a very small percentage of the loan population.
Right.
So if you really have to make that impact, you need a more universal use case, and that's where, I mean, our background, we started as, and we still are. I mean, we run the back office for a lot of lenders, servicers, title companies, mortgage insurers, everybody in the mortgage space, if you may, investors. So we run the back office. So our familiarity with the mortgage documents, the process itself, controls, compliance, what are the pitfalls of that each step in the process, that is something that we live. I mean, we live and we breathe. So a lot of all our technology platforms really, either they started with us building it to use it to deliver our services, or we actually we took some, our experience in terms of challenge areas, and we built that out as a use case, because we felt like, for instance, income calculation is a big challenge for in the underwriting process. It is probably the number one uh, area that even experienced underwriters stumble. It is, there are so many different variations that that come into play. So we actually tackle that first from an automation perspective, and that's really Income Genius. And so we really started there, and that helped us cut our teeth in terms of just how do we go about implementing automation and drive adoption. When you start working with users, you need to be able to get them satisfied and convinced that you know their business.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to have, build a tech in a lab and then come in and, you can blow the executives away, but then when you start implementing it, the user's like, whoa, wait a minute, right? And some of it is just resistance, right? I mean, some of it is just resistance to change. It's not a genuine technology concern, but you still have to address that. You still have to bring them along the journey. So we see that as our biggest strength, is that we don't come in with this view that oh, everything just once like wave of a wand and everything gets done, right? But we do have a methodology, right? A method to how we bring in that step by step, so that it's not a long drawn, expensive effort to implement the technology, but we focus on that adoption, the user comfort, and so it's really the use cases that we've built. And now that's translated into Gen AI. I mean, I don't want to kind of jump ahead, but the Gen AI is just another technology, weapon in our armory, if you may, right? I mean, there are many others that we have used, and we see Gen AI kind of augment that on top of what we have.
I think that perspective is so helpful and so important, especially right now. Let's kind of dig down into some of those other use cases. You talked about income. What other real world applications do you see that are most important for lenders?
Loan decisioning. I mean, I think just the whole loan decisioning. Uh, when you look at the lenders universe, I mean, that loan decision. Uh, it is just that they rely. I mean, they're still reliant on experienced underwriters, and and that's the area that has the maximum volatility with the volumes, right? Correlation to the volume volatility. So it's like if the volumes when the volumes drop, you have to let people go. When they have to hire underwriters. It's a mess. I mean, we've dealt with it because we live in that world. So that taking that loan decision and breaking it into different components, automating that, automating each of those components so that when the underwriter goes into the file, like 60% of what they usually would do is already done for them. So maybe sometimes 70%, right? I mean, it's done. It's not none of the stare and compare, go check this, go check that, which is it's a lot of what they do. They open a spreadsheet, they start calculating income, all of that's taken away, and everybody is doing it the same way. This consistency, right? So, and then from there on, the underwriter now takes over. So it's like we're not at a point where you can just completely eliminate the underwriter.
Right.
We wouldn't recommend that. That is a risky proposition. I don't know any lender who is willing to do that, right? I mean, it's great to hear that. Soundbite is great, makes great headlines. Not what doesn't work in practice. But you want to make them more productive. You want to give them more information at their fingertips so that they don't have to go search the mortgage loan file. They don't have to do any of that. So that's like one use case. I mean, that also drives better borrower experience because you are now having lesser number of touches on the loan, right? I mean, you're giving all the information ahead of time so that the loan officer can interact with the borrower. You make that a much smoother experience. Another use case, which I mean, for the longest time, I thought that is a use case that has been addressed. A problem that's been addressed is just the act of indexing a loan file into the right bookmarks and identifying the different versions of a same document. And for example, a 1003, the loan application, I mean, there can be 5 versions of it. There can be one for each borrower, so maybe 2 borrowers. So now you're talking about 10. You're talking about 10 1003s. Each one is 15 pages. That's 150 pages right there, right? If all of that is lumped in one bookmark, imagine now the underwriter or the closer or the processor or anyone in downstream I mean, even in capital markets, I mean, just think about it. There's so many people who are dependent on the 1003. They have to open that bookmark. They got to go find the latest version, the first version for borrower one, the last version. I mean, imagine it sounds very mundane, banal, but it matters when it comes to the effectiveness of decision making at each step of the mortgage process. So it's this indexing, making sure that the docs go into the right folders, that it's versioned properly, they can actually see it, and they can get to it quickly. Um, that is a use case that I thought, frankly, it was addressed. Now, in order to do the loan decisioning, which is that product is Decision Genius, we need to be able to extract data from documents. We built an enabling technology, I would call it, called IDX, which really gets to that. It's not so unique that a lot of other people have it. What we have done differently is we take on the responsibility of making sure that the docs are in the right folders and we don't push that responsibility onto the lender. because that's what the other techs do. They basically get it done. They get it up to 80%. The remaining 20%, they say, okay, you go do it. Now that 20% is not exactly 20% of effort because you don't know what is not in the right folders, right? And so now it's like, you got to go search for that. So the 20% of the docs may translate to 50% of the effort. So that is something that we have taken up because tell our customers, you don't have to worry about it. You're going to get it because we have this capability of, because we do the actual back office work, we can, whatever the automation misses, I mean, because it's going to miss. I mean, there are things that it is never 100%. We make that commitment and we put those into the right folders. Now, that is a use case that has been extremely well received for us in the industry. In fact, we started marketing that as a standalone service only about a year and a half ago, and we're just like inundated with these large customers who are still facing that problem. So hopefully that gives you a flavor. I mean, it's these kind of things that, on one end, it's this load decisioning, very esoteric, very like heavy duty stuff, right? And then it's just like making sure the docs are in the right folders. It's kind of the entire spectrum. And all in those areas, I mean, all the entire repertoire of automation technologies comes into play. Machine learning, LLMs, just a pattern matching. We use we use some fuzzy logic. We use things like regex, regular expression. I mean, there's just a plethora of technologies that you got to use. I mean, there's a rules engine that drives behind it. So you got to use all of these things to make sure that you get to the data, you get the docs in the right folders. So the underlying technologies are all the same, but the use cases start now multiplying.
So earlier you talked about guardrails, right? You mentioned guardrails. Now you have to have them. What kind of guardrails should lenders have in place to ensure, that AI tools are reliable, they're accurate? This is so important, and we know it's sort of a black box. So how do you approach that?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it is something that I think every automation solution has to contend with. You just have to, first of all, it's at the lowest level. When you look at the whole automation stack, I mean, the highest level is the end user, right? I mean, the end user is reviewing the results. At the lowermost stack, it's really when the data is being obtained and extracted from different sources. There are techniques that can be built in, use driving confidence scores. I mean, there's this bunch of different techniques that then you can augment it with wherever you say you're not that confident, you can actually have a human verify it, right? And the nice thing about that is when the human verifies that is a feedback loop back to the model, right? It's giving the model saying, the next time you encounter something like this, don't push it into the human. You know how to handle. This is how you got to handle it. Sometimes it takes like 15, 20 of those cases for the model to learn, say, okay, I got it. Now I'm not going to push this. So over a period of time, you eliminate those kind of edge cases, right? So now at the lowest level, it's important because everything that you do about that depends on the data that you're getting from here, right? If the data is wrong, is garbage in, is garbage out. So you got to get that fixed. So that is one kind of, if you may, a kind of a check and balance. As you then start building out the use case around it, and as you start, using a combination of rules, and you could be using Gen AI, I mean, using a series of prompts. You basically are like very simple example. In the world of underwriting, one of the things you have to verify is if there are gift funds, right? Funds came in through a gift that somebody gave the borrower, right? I mean, a family member, a friend, to put down the down payment. I mean, Fannie requires you to disclose that. I mean, find out, and usually that is accompanied by a gift letter. That gift letter is a non-standard document. I mean, everybody can write whatever letter they want, right? So you basically, so you can actually have, through Gen AI, have a very sophisticated prompt that actually reviews that and deduces that there is a gift. The gift is of this amount. It is given from this person to this person, and you package that entire information into a description, a condition in the LOS, and you push it into the LOS, right? That's what we do. Now, the underwriter who's reviewing it, their job instruction has to be like, don't just take it as for face value. You have all this information. Just open the gift letter, which, by the way, has been indexed and put into the right folder, right? I mean, so you don't have to go search for it. It's there. just make sure it's okay, right? I mean, you basically still want your eyes to be on it to just make, I mean, that is, I mean, where we feel that because there was a lot of non-standard information in that gift letter, that's why we are asking you to do it. But when it comes to standard documents, like a 1003, an AUS, any condition that's driven from that, the underwriter can be instructed, just don't worry about it. Just, you can trust it, you can move forward because we have these layers of checks and balances that we built in to make sure that the data is correct and the condition, I mean, and the prompt or rule that ran on top of was executed properly. So it's that kind of a combination because sometimes what we see is that you can train the model, the LLM, because the LLM thing is that we're not developing our own large language model. We're using what's out there, right? And that's the other part that we do. We kind of triage between actually use multiple LLMs to be able to get to the right results based on what we're doing, which task at hand. But even then, it could just hallucinate. So what do you do? So we identify the conditions that have been generated through that LLM, through these inferences, as we call it. We call it inferences. And then those are the ones that the underwriter can make sure that, it looks good. It matches up with everything else. Because once they're in the file, they know everything about that file. They just need additional information at their fingertips that they don't have to go search. And we see that drives up productivity enormously. Just because you're not replacing the experienced underwriter. Yes, you may be able to go with a lesser experienced person, not somebody with 25, 30 years experience, but that underwriter knows how to underwrite that file. So that's kind of how we kind of build all these guardrails, checks and balances, so that there is no risk of mass scale errors that have a cascading effect. So I think this is just, and it's still evolving. We're kind of coming up with new checks and balances. How can we build those guardrails? But building guardrails has to be a central part of your AI automation strategy. Absolutely.
I think that that's really interesting because my next question was going to be about how do you keep the humans in the loop? But it feels like you guys have already that in some ways that's organic for you because as you're looking at the whole process, as you're looking at the operation, you know where the human needs to be.
Correct. We basically look at it and say, how can you make the humans more productive, far more productive? So you need lesser of them. Let's put it that way. There's definitely, because there has to be a cost advantage. You cannot carry the same team. You cannot carry the same capacity to as your volumes go up, because that is one of the challenges in this industry, right? And that's never going to go away because we are driven by factors that are beyond our control, like whether it's interest rates, whether it's the state of the economy, inflation. We don't control any of that. So you're going to have to build a business model that's predicated around that volatility. And so it's how do you build an operating model that allows you to bring down that cost, but that cost without sacrificing the quality, effectiveness, turn times, none of that. So it's you definitely need lesser of the people, but your goal shouldn't be to just, I'm going to get rid of everybody. Definitely in some of the I would call it the task-based functions like indexing, data entry. Things that are still done today. That you can completely eliminate because that's, at least from the way we go about it. We tell our customers, you don't need to have staff on your end at all doing that. But when it comes to underwriters, loan reviewers, auditors, just those people who do the QC, you're making them far, far more productive than they are. And you're bringing about a consistency and a standard in how they do their tasks and their functions.
That strategic use of like, here's how it's going to operate, here's where you need a human, all of that is so important. Let's talk about adoption a little bit, right? Because what does a phased, realistic roadmap look like for most lenders? Like if they're looking at like, okay, what's my next step? What does that look like?
The adoption, as I mentioned, that's where, because wherever there are humans remaining in the process, right? There are some functions, stare and compare, indexing. I mean, any type involved, anything that we call, just stare and compare, right?
Right.
It's gone. You don't need it. You don't need any human in the loop. It's just, but there, where there is humans, you want to be able to, the biggest challenge that we see is really uh, undoing what, years and years of habits. Like there's a certain way they do things. So how do we get them to see that how do you embrace the technology as being something that helps improve their output and their productivity. I mean, I think that's really what you got to get to. So the information has to be presented to them in a consistent, clear, concise manner. And in case of a load decisioning automation, it takes the form of conditions in the LOS, because again, you're not doing away with the LOS. I mean, the LOS is still the heart of the heart of the process, and we're pushing stuff into it. So it's very seamless. It is, I mean, it's quick. I mean, that's the other piece, right? It's quick. They don't have to wait for it. They don't have to wait for hours. They don't have to do it themselves. A lot of it is ready for them. And I think just bringing them into the fold. And we basically we advocate that when you implement something new, you create like a core focus group. We tell our lender clients, create a group of adopters who are open to change. I mean, not you know who they are in your organization. They're saying, "Oh, I'll take this on," right? You create that group. You want to create some internal advocates, and once that happens, I mean, then it's amazing when they hear from their own colleagues, than from a vendor or from their management. Actually, it's amazing how they kind of just quickly embrace it. So we that's the other piece that we advocate. You want to make it the key is, even if there are things that they have to do in addition to what the automation does, you want to make it consistent. You don't want something to work one day, and I mean, it's like one way, and then the next loan. I mean, like a month later, they see another loan. It's not working consistently. So having that consistency is the key. I mean, these are things that just drive the human behavior of saying, yeah, I can trust this. I can. So it's building that trust. And we basically say trust but verify, right? I mean, trust but verify, right? And then once you get to a point, it looks good, and you can trust it. I mean, you don't need to verify at that point. So it's just that, and that's why we say, I mean, the automation journey, and especially with Gen AI, I mean, I keep telling my client, it's not a sprint. I mean, this is a marathon, right? I mean, you gotta be prepared for that. You gotta work through that. I mean, and that's really our proposition, right? We're not coming in, and we're not in and out. I mean, we build that long-term relationship. We keep enhancing. We make huge investments in our technology platforms. I mean, that's what we've been doing for so many years. I mean, 18 years, as I mentioned. And we just and so that's what our clients. That's the assurance that we give them, that we are here with you through this long race.
Amazing and great stuff. Okay, I have one last question. That is looking ahead. Let's look to the future. How is Indicom looking at the future?
Many different dimensions to it. But I'll just say that where we want to be is, or at least I'll speak from the Indicom wants to be, and then I think just from the industry perspective. Maybe let me start with the industry, right? I think the industry is still coming to grips with. It has come to grips with the fact that the market is what it is, right? I think it, after the COVID years, 22, 23 was really hard. 24, 25. I mean, this is stabilized, and I think it's waiting for that next. When does the next boom come around, right? I don't think it's coming around that quickly. It's not. But it's at the same time, it's growing. It's growing. It's steady growth, right? And that's a growth that most people can put their arms around. But I think just where they're still grappling with is what's the best use of technology? There are so many different options that are around there, and the people in the decision making chair, I have to. I mean, they're just sifting through all those options and making the right decisions. I think that's the number one challenge that they have as far as the technology adoption is concerned. I think the industry is still figuring it out, but I feel where I see it go is there are going to be some really practical use cases of AI, both Gen AI, things like agentic AI, to be able to improve building the agentic AI components into the LOS, for instance. I think the LOS vendors are going to be tasked and challenged to do that. Some of the more established ones are going to have it harder to do it because even though they have more resources, I mean, I shall not name anyone because we are partners with all of them, they're going to have challenges simply because they have made existing investments and their technology is rigid in that sense, right? Because it's been built and not any slam on their design or anything like that. But that's how things are. Once something is in, it's harder to build, kind of completely transform it, which is where I think we're going to see the new age LOS solutions that will have a great opportunity. They will basically be able to build some of this things like agentic AI, chatbots, Gen AI. I mean, all of that into the process, right? So that you don't have, so you can start now imagining and visualizing the mortgage process very differently. This whole thing of completely touchless lending, zero touch, human touch. I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen in our lifetime. This going to probably happen for a small percentage of loans, but there is going to be a large percentage of loans that are still the humans involved. But how do you make best use? And I think your LOS and your other technology that surrounds it, like what we provide, is really what's going to drive it. So which is where I see Indicom being is staying on that leading edge. I won't say cutting edge, right? I mean, because we cannot. I mean, and we have a whole R&D function that happens. We are constantly evaluating new stuff. We bring it in very responsibly because you can't just like, okay, oh, there's a new thing, let's just incorporate it. It's very disruptive and it's not proven. So that's what we want to be that. We want to be that the marathon coach, if you may. That's with the lender as they're running through that long race, right? So we are there every step of the way, and we're making the investments, and we're staying ahead of the curve as much as we can, and driving that, being part of that automation journey that they're inevitably they're going to go down. So I think that's where I see it both for the industry and as for us.
Raj, this has been a great conversation. I could talk all day about this. We are out of time now, but it's an exciting time for the industry and it's an exciting time for Indicom. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, I can go on all day, so which you don't have. So.
No, it was great. I so appreciate it. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, and it was wonderful talking to you.